I'm Hermie Smith, and I'm with an organization called CityTeam. And unfortunately, I never turned my mic on, so I have to re-record this whole presentation, which is a bummer. But several of you have asked you would like to have the video, so let me re-record this and go through what I shared at the workshop. I'm with an organization called CityTeam, and my title is the City Director of CityTeam in the Neighborhood and Church Engagement. And I've been with CityTeam since 2001, so that's 23 years. And my DMM journey started in 2005 when David Watson came to train us. And our department was ours, and youth outreach was really the ones that kind of like, we were the early adopters and implemented these principles. And it wasn't as well put together as we have it now. So a lot of trial and error, and literally the first 3 years we made all the classic mistakes, and literally we had 3 major restarts. So what I mean by that, we started a bunch of groups, they wouldn't multiply. Sometimes they would multiply to the second generation, they won't go to the third or more, and we just realized we were still very much operating on spiritual muscle memory that's based on addition and not multiplication. So it took us some time, but really then we started, after about 3.5 years, we started seeing breakthroughs, and then multiplication started taking place. And it's been incredible what we got to see, and how God uses new disciples to literally see lives transformed. So many miracles took place, and where it spread literally by the time 2012, 2014. It was already in 15 different countries. None of the CityTeam staff took it there. It was disciples that lives been transformed, and they got that DNA. And then when they move or they go on vacation, or sometimes even over the phone, or they would start discovery groups in these places. So we believe that our cities is so diverse, and literally even now with so many immigrants moving, that really gave us a great opportunity to make a global impact. And we can really reach the nations by reaching our city. And that's really been true. I'll give you just as a dot chart. We used to keep track of groups. So these squares are locations where ministry takes place, persons of peace are being discovered, discovery groups are being launched. And all of these, that's the first generation, second generation, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. There's a 7th generation there too. We used to have this dot chart. We did that all the way up to 2012, and then it just became too much of a challenge. But this will give you a snapshot, sometime 2012, of work. That's Trudy. This was in the work that she led in San Francisco area. And then it started spreading out from there as people have taken it to different locations, Nicaragua and Central America. That's Ricardo. He's still on staff. Both him and I have been CityTeam 23 years. So you can see multiplication. So these squares would represent replication. So we replicate, DMM outreach. And this represents multiplication. We've seen in some areas consistently all the way up to 8 generations. But a lot of 4th, 5th, 6th generation. Some of these we started partnering with local churches and trained some of their folks, and they would go out and start first generation groups. And that's just a snapshot. Initially, we were hoping to work with local churches, but we did not quite know how to articulate this, and we were not very successful initially working with local churches. So I think we kind of had to do this also ourselves. We had to prove the concept, and it wasn't until really we started seeing some multiplication and get some traction that we were able to start working with some of the local churches that have really embraced this DMM model. And My talk today is, as you know, we were in Cuba in 2017, 2018, and really during this time, and it was just really taking off there incredibly. And God used a lot of these established churches or denominations as we trained some of their folks. They were very effective at starting a lot of discovery groups and plant churches through this, and seen many, many generations. At the second visit, God spoke both to me and Ricardo that we should focus on our Jerusalem. And our Jerusalem is really the Bay Area. San Jose, that's where we're based out of. Because it started taking off and really growing exponentially in more of the Latin American, the developing countries, we started taking our eyes off the Bay Area, and we felt that the Lord is like, no, we have to actually focus more. And then when new generations kind of spun off, all of that international stuff no longer was part of our ministry, and we tried to hand some of that off. But the beautiful thing is also, in Cuba, still thriving. Honduras, thriving. Areas in Mexico, still doing well. Venezuela, thriving. And they don't need us anymore. They don't need our resources. Now, some of our folks do send some resources, but it's a drop in the bucket. It's just more of an honor, and the friendships continue. But we are learning from them. They are encouraging us. And that's just a testament that this works. It shouldn't depend on us, right? So, but as we look at the Bay Area and realizing, man, our local churches really need help. And we wanted to, this time around, we want to work through the local church and really see the value in having a permanent presence. A local church, a traditional church, really has that. There's a building. We also seen some of the persecution. We've seen even, some of our groups, literally, they were in apartment complexes, and there's a large gathering, and one of the neighbors called immigration, and this whole group got detained by ICE. That was one occasion, but, churches are also safe havens. And we just realized a lot of churches are already also doing a lot of great work, but they need help in follow-up. They need help in harvesting and making disciples. And this passage really spoke to us. John 4:35-38. It says, don't you have a saying? This is Jesus saying, this is after his encounter with the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman. And his disciples came back, and he's like, don't you have a saying? It's still 4 months until the harvest. I tell you, open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. Even now, the one who reaps draws a wage and harvests a crop for eternal life, so that the sower and the reaper may be glad together. Thus the saying, one sows and another reaps, is true. I send you to reap what you have not worked for. Others have done the hard work, and you have reaped the benefits of their labor. So what I see in this passage, and it is so true, it's sowing is a different skill set than harvesting. And in DMM, a lot of our focus is on the harvesting side. Classic evangelism, disciple making, and so forth. And that has some real value for the sowers. So where sowing happens, we can join. It's like Robert was sharing, sometimes you don't have to start your own team. You can join someone else's team. And that could mean joining an existing church that is doing sowing, but not harvesting. So we can leverage that. And I see in the San Jose and the San Francisco Bay Area, there are churches that do a lot of great work and are serving their community and doing it very well. That's one thing churches do really well, is they do events very well. And they're great at hospitality, creating a welcoming environment. So, but what I see a lot of time, there's a disconnect between disciple making, that harvesting. And for the most part, I know there's exceptions, but for the most part, evangelism only takes place if somebody have gone to a church service, come to a Sunday worship service. And disciple making only happens when you join a life group, for the most part. And if you come from a Catholic culture and this is the evangelical church, there's some legitimate barriers that a lot of times will prevent people from coming to your Sunday service. And if you come from Buddhist or Muslim or whatever background, now it's like a whole nother level. So the key is there is an opportunity. The opportunity gap is right here. DMM folks, we have new generations, we have an opportunity to come alongside churches and help them with the harvesting work. Like Jesus said, the harvest is plentiful. We see the harvest plentiful. Right now, every time we put an invitation, I'll share with our pop-up closets, 25 or more people say yes to spiritual community. We have to just learn how to minimize the barriers. You're not going to minimize those barriers, and then create opportunities. So these bridge programs for people to be able to get in spiritual community and start their discovery and start their disciple-making journey. So that's a different skill set. So what we want to do is raise up harvesters, disciple makers, that can be inserted in where there's already sowing to do some harvesting. And that's what we are doing at CityTeam in San Jose. We know the Luke 10 passage, the harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. And what we've seen, so I did a talk on the whole Milpitas Cares and how we've kind of looked at different churches in the small city of Milpitas, is kind of north of San Jose. They've been at this pastors network, they've been meeting for over 25 years. And they serve the community well. And so there's the regular group of churches that meet. And I just created a Google sheet and I said, okay, just list all the programs and services that's open to public that you provided your church. And there was about 23 or 24 services. And then we narrowed it down because the chief of police have asked him who was a believer that they actually reached and discipled. The mayor was also became a believer that this pastor's disciple to faith. And they said, we know you guys are doing great work. There's some great, when my officers encounter people that need help, the secular programs, there's a 1-800, there's a list, but we don't know what churches offer, because let's face it, churches, we don't play very well with the city. We don't quite know how to interact with them. But the cities are really open to work with Christian churches. So I have this Google sheet, and then we narrowed it down to about, I think, 16 that would be appropriate or would be relevant for police officers and also schools and the school liaisons. And then we repurposed this website called Milpitas Cares that was just around Easter, and it's like a give help and a get help. And these services is now listed as categories. Now, we did the survey at this one church in Milpitas. They inherited a pantry that used to meet at a high school about a block away. And after the pandemic in the school, people returned. The school said, we want our parking lot back. So every other Saturday, about 800 unique families get served there. And the pastor found out and he said, yeah, sure. We have a big parking lot. We'd be happy to have, and I can mobilize my church and they will be happy to volunteer. Bring the pantry here. So now this church, and this has been already several months, probably a year already, they were serving 800 households every other Saturday on their campus. But the pastor, when I had conversations, he's like, man, but the gap between the parking lot and actually them joining our congregation, hearing the gospel, getting involved into small groups and life groups and becoming disciples is so big, we don't know how to cross that barrier. And I said, well, why don't we just kind of see what kind of appetite is there? So I did some surveys. We surveyed 17 people. And this was an hour before, because cars wait before the pantry starts. People show up early. Now, I got to say that a lot of the Chinese folks didn't want to talk to me, and there's a language barrier and so forth. And but I talked with some Vietnamese, we talked with English, some Spanish speaking, and some Filipinos. And one of the questions I just said, look, we have, here is a list of different programs, and if it's available, would you be interested in in taking part of this program or this service. And I said, you're not going to offend me, so only if you're really serious about it, say yes, otherwise just no, and don't worry about it. So the first one is English speaking, writing, and it's like an ESL class. Check this out, 70% said, oh, I need that. But if it's, how much does it cost? Is it free or when it's available? Well, Christ Community Church in Milpitas has a large ESL program. 200 to 250 people on any given day, any given time is going through this program. And get this, 80% of people come to faith, come to Christ as they go through this ESL program. They did not know it existed. Support if you have lost a loved one. 30% said yes to that. Divorce recovery. And when we started talking about these things, overcoming unhealthy habits and addictions, 23.5%, people started opening up. They started sharing with me how their child went in for an operation, got hooked on opioids and is now using methamphetamine. Or they talk about how they lost a loved one and how that still hurts. And they have nobody to talk to. People are so isolated and struggling with loneliness and anxiety and are just being beat down and overwhelmed. And here are all these beautiful programs that is offered in the name of Jesus, but they don't know of it because nobody tells them. There's that disconnect. One thing that just blew me away, spiritual community. And they asked me, what is that? I said, to be part of a church or a small group where you become friends and you, with others, you learn more about God and grow in your faith. Oh, I need that. I need that. 64.5%, so 65% said yes to spiritual community. And what blows me away, the Bay Area is known as the most unchurched and de-churched area in the nation. It's known as, quote unquote, hard soil. But when we serve people, when we do Matthew 25, and we present maybe the gospel not as, come to church right away, but if we can have some bridge programs, if we can meet their needs, people are open. So this was just eye-opening. And the last one is 70% they said no, so the numbers actually with people that we talked about was actually higher. In our survey that was done just about the DNA components that we had 11 responses. I was one of the 11. And that areas that is well established. You see, discovery of scripture. We do DBS really well. Good job, New Generations. And then ordinary people, working with ordinary people, yes. But engaging the lost was only 45%. Constantly engaging the lost. So there's some room for growth there. You look at what's not well established, constantly engaging the lost is about 30% said that is not well established. And then as you look at your replication and multiplication coaching, that may just be where folks that fill this out, where they are on the spectrum of, or the maturity of their work. But what I want to present is there's some opportunity here. Instead of trying to start some access ministry and try to engage the lost, like Robert said, sometimes you have to join someone else's team. We can leverage existing work that churches are doing that are already engaging the lost and actually go and do some harvesting. So at CityTeam, like I said, I'm the director of CityTeam in the neighborhood where we serve low-income families. And this time around, we really want to do that with churches. But we kind of break it up into meeting immediate needs and lasting solutions. Immediate needs, that's the Matthew 25 type of things. We have these mobile pantry programs. We have a phenomenal food bank that's probably the best food bank in the nation at getting staggering amounts of good quality food. The challenge they have is getting it to the people that really needs it. Well, that's where we come in. They come and drop food off 4 times a week, and then we take that from our warehouse to 43 different neighborhoods. And we do that in partnership with 50 local churches. So that is, and what it does when people are food insecure and they're overwhelmed and they're just stressed out, it's very difficult to make long-term decisions, including saying yes to Jesus, trying something different. But once their toxic stress is reduced, all of a sudden, literally, science said, there's now mental bandwidth to be able to say yes to some of these things. Pop-up closets is where we bring clothing, hygiene products, and household goods also to these very same locations. But now we create on-ramps to lasting solutions. So with the food pantries, with government food, you're limited. There's a separation between church and state. But at these pop-ups, we make it more intimate, also on a monthly basis, sometimes at a different time or sometimes at the same time as the pantry. But that's where our follow-up captains, that's where they start having spiritual conversations. That's where they share testimonies. That's where they recruit people to Vital Connection and disciple-making programs. And people say yes. I'll share with some stories right now. Every time we put an invitation out, about 25 or more % said yes, say yes, especially in the Hispanic population, super open right now. And this is now where friendships, people are lonely, they have friends, they become friends like family. They also discover God and transformation starts taking place. Not only are they becoming disciples, but they also pass it on to others. And I'll unpack a little bit. It's very similar to a discovery group. And now they are perfectly positioned for our career connections, where we help them discover how God has wired them, how that translates to career paths that will give them a living wage job and lift people out of poverty, and they become also mentors to others and examples to mentors to be lifted out of poverty. And that's really a holistic approach. We don't have to do it all. We can partner with different organizations, but it's very important that, those relationships that is forged when we meet their immediate needs, we're very intentional to create on-ramps to lasting solutions. Just real quick. So every dot here represents a mobile pantry: Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, Alameda County, total of 62. Only reason we could do that is because we have partnerships with local churches. During the pandemic, many have backed off, and we were able to replicate this because churches said yes. When the secular groups closed their doors, shelter in place, the churches said yes. And we went from, when the pandemic happened, we had to close some, we were running 14, we had to consolidate some 9, and that was end of March, we were down to 9. We told our food bank, tell us where the gaps are and we can work with the church. And church responded beautifully. By the time it was June, we were already running 26 pantries, and they just serve the people regardless of fear. So that's the beauty of the church. And then right now we have 18 pop-up closets. We have another 12 or 14 in the making. And the main purpose here is for follow-up. This is where we're going to have those spiritual conversations. And we are looking at the training up from our churches, how to do effective follow-up. So we package our DMM training very specifically for that. And it's really around understanding, have a biblical theology about, engaging people, how to have spiritual conversations, how to lower the barriers for people to say yes to disciple making, and then how to invite and how to facilitate a discovery group, a Vital Connections group. So that's the extent. They don't need to go all the way in all the training. And many of our churches, they don't also need to understand everything of DMM. Now, if it's a Spanish-speaking church serving a Spanish-speaking community, they're going to be a lot more involved, and we got to be more involved in training them. But many times these are like a Chinese church serving a Spanish population. So that's where we train and insert disciple makers to harvest, and we work with the church because the church want to see their people reach. They want to see people become followers of Christ. They want to see people get in the Word. They want to see people life be transformed, become also disciple makers. So they're all for it. They just cannot do it. So they ask us, can you help us? And then when we have a bench of people that can be inserted, we can do that. Let me just play this for you.
Hey Hey, I'm Chris. I'm with Awakening Church, and we're at Del Mar High School, where we as a church have been meeting for 9 years, our whole church's history. And we're serving Del Mar here with CityTeam, doing a mobile food pantry and a pop-up clothing tent. This is the Thursday before Thanksgiving, and as you can see, just tons of amazing support and volunteers here to serve hundreds of families in our community. What we get to do first and third Thursday is provide over 150 cars with food, so that represents maybe close to 200 families. And then quarterly we get to do this clothing tent where people come in and are able to receive free clothing. And so the cool part about what we get to do is we are on a school campus right now. It's been our home. Our motto has been that Del Mar is not a place to meet, it's a people to love. CityTeam is helping us love these people, and so we're just thrilled about seeing everybody turn out. So after the pandemic, really Del Mar was in a lot of need, and we have been continually contributing to Del Mar for our 9-year history here, but the need rose as the pandemic was ending, and it was an amazing thing to have them call us and say, what can we do more? And to have CityTeam ready and available, ready to go, to jump in and serve all these meals, it actually allowed our relationship to go even deeper. And I really believe right now, because of this food pantry, this regular contribution to this community, we are in a better, healthier, deeper relationship with Del Mar High School and with the community around us in Campbell and San Jose. And so it's incredible to watch God do what he's been doing, and we can't wait for more of what's ahead. Putting this volunteer team together has been a challenge because our food pantry is between 2:30 and 4 p.m. But what we found is this is actually a great way for new people at our church to be plugged in, because new people, sometimes they're a little hesitant to go to a Bible study or to a community group or something like that. But if you say, hey, do you want to help some people in need? They'll clear their schedule. So actually a lot of our team is newer people to our church that has connected in a deep way, getting to know one another as they serve alongside each other. So that's brought a ton of fresh life into our community. The other thing is we've now been going for 3 or 4 months, and it's starting to get a reputation where this is the place to be on every first and third Thursday at Awakening. So if you're not here, you're missing out, and that's been a cool thing to watch.
And that's Ana Naranjo.
Hi, my name is Ana Naranjo. I'm here in Silicon Valley Alliance Church. We just finished your distribution from Papa Closet and toys. And I also happy because we had 25 families. And also we have 8 families who are coming to the Vital Connections. And I say thank you to Alliance Valley Church to let my team to distribute the food over here in the clothes, and I say thank you to CityTeam for this opportunity to the families. It's a great opportunity, and today I invite more persons to the program, and I'm so happy because we recruit 8 persons today. And thank you to all the persons who make possible this. Thank you so much.
And her and her team were all pantry guests, and they pantry, then pop up, and they went through Vital Connection, Anna, her sister, and the lady there, and they became the team that are the best evangelists. They are reaching out. When we had gifted people recruiting, we could only find 3. Just at this event, Anna effortlessly get 8 people to sign up for Vital Connections. From a few events she did an awareness gathering with, I think, 23 or 24 people signed up. I think they got about 17 people now, or 14 people in Vital Connections. And that's just because our best workers come from the harvest. And when they share a testimony, it's like, oh, this is my friend. There's no barriers to overcome. And this is Rosario.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Rosario Aguirre. I come from the Santee community. I am a community leader. I like to serve my community. I started with CityTeam through the food pantry. When they started giving food there in the community, I was going as part of the community, not as a volunteer. I would go and then I saw how they gave the food. I saw that they gave it with love, with joy, with a very good attitude. So I decided to get involved and volunteer with them. From there, I started going to the clothing program. I had been invited to talk about spiritual things, but since I am Catholic, I did not want to. I did not want to because I felt that my religion as a Catholic did not allow for me to be involved with those whom they were talking about. But little by little, I went there to serve. I started to become a volunteer and became aware of the way CityTeam works, with a lot of respect, a lot of love. Then when I went to the pop-up closet, I met more people, made more friends, and was then invited to an informational meeting about Vital Connections. From there, I got hooked onto Vital Connections. I realized that it is not about any religion. It is only about something spiritual, about what the Bible says. I've graduated, and now I am the facilitator of 6 people, plus me, that's 7 people. And the truth is that for me, it's been a very nice experience, and we are working together so that more people in the community can join us in Vital Connections. I know it's a job, but we need to look out for the people so they see that this is a spiritual thing that fills your heart with joy and gladness.
The beautiful thing there is she became a volunteer, pantry guest, and that's the other thing is we want to do this with people, not just always for them. So always look for ways to include the people we serve and do that with them. She's a total person of peace, and we do these graduations, and they started doing this themselves. They have these plaques where they talk about the 4 components of Vital Connections: discovering God, discovering self, discovering my family. Connecting with my family, and then connecting with my community, my neighbors, but also spiritual community. And they share their testimonies, and then more of their family and friends are there. Many times they would then join the next Vital Connections, and they become the facilitators. This lady, she lost her husband. Actually, her mom went through the Vital Connections first, and then her husband died, and her heart was absolutely devastating. He died during COVID, and she said many times as she shared her story, she didn't want to get out of bed, but she has a 12-year-old daughter, and she had to keep going for her daughter. But she remembered her mom went through Vital Connections. Mom was ministering to her, and she said, I need that. So she and her daughter went through Vital Connections, and it completely transformed her life. And she said, God healed her heart, started putting the pieces back together, and all that darkness, He started cleaning all of that, and it's creating me a clean heart, oh Lord. That's the power when we get people into community, and when they experience transformation, they share that, and that's when it becomes contagious. So I think she's a 3rd generation. She was part of a 3rd generation Vital Connections group, and so this is just one graduation from Milpitas. This was at another in San Jose. So at these pantries, there's already follow-up taking place at 25 of the 40 that's in Santa Clara, San Mateo County. Some of the churches, it's just still just doing pantry, and there's no follow-up taking place. So we really need to mobilize and equip and support more follow-up folks. Let's call them disciple makers. And that's really what we're focusing on. We're not interested in starting more pantries. We want to go deeper in where there's already pantry, already sowing and watering taking place. Just real quick, so 11 locations where there's Vital Connections taking place. We have another 12 in process, in training and in process of launching a Vital Connections program. And Vital Connections, like I said, is just a starting point. After, when they graduate, initially we would start them right away in a Creation to Christ DBS, but we slowed it down and we said, okay, actually, what we rather want is we want now that you went through the program, we want you to take another cohort through. And we just find that, man, they get a lot of benefit from taking others through that. And after that, we take them then through the Creation to Christ DBS, the 26 lessons. And they love that. They love the reading scripture. And we used to have, it's just a workbook. We now, everybody in Violent Connections, we make sure they get a Bible, and we teach them after a while where these passages, how to navigate, how to find passages, and develop, this is where this comes from. And we also added with facilitation, how you're going to obey this and who you're going to share this with. So, but yeah, so, and then our career connections, we have 2 locations where we're in process of launching that. And, 2 locations where that's happening, and then 3, we're in the process, there's a potential, but that's going to be something that's going to take some time, but really lifting families out of poverty. Now, again, the opportunity gap. I think there's value in looking at, some of you are connected with churches. Several of you, oversee some of the church. I had one gentleman from San Diego. He's actually part of a whole network of churches. And he was telling me, he's like, yeah, our church do a lot of great work, but there's a lot of harvest that are going unharvested. And I'm just saying, it's like, this is a way we can work and solve a problem for our legacy churches. And many of our churches, in the beginning, we wanted, okay, you got to adopt the whole thing. You got to go through the training. And now he's like, okay, now you got to do, the whole lifestyle thing. And then it just hasn't been effective at people where they live, work, learn, and play. They got to share. And then they got to start groups. And it's just, and many times the community is so afraid that you almost need to have a container where there's community. And then that you insert the gospel there. We just figured it's like, man, some of these pop-ups and these pantries are like community. We can insert the gospel there, but it's a different skill set, harvesting than sowing and planting. So many times churches are good at sowing, they're good at serving, meeting needs, but they're, again, need help with how to harvest. And have some of these bridge programs like a Vital Connections or Discovery Group or a Alpha or Celebrate Recovery. It can just be introduction and meet a need where they are at. Once they experience transformation, maybe it's a marriage group. Sometimes it's financial literacy. People are struggling, and they need to see us as meeting the needs, stepping into, loving them, and we want to help them. And that creates opportunities then to eventually start them, walk them through reading God's Word, building spiritual community, becoming disciples and disciple makers. So there's an opportunity there. And DMM, we are good at training and equipping. And I think we can help partner with local church. Maybe it's a church network. Maybe it's an entity there. Look at pastors' networks. You don't have to have a warehouse and do what CityTeam does. I know we're uniquely positioned. Not everybody can do that. But you can look at where is some of these programs and how can you leverage that? How can you partner with that and solve that harvesting problem for them? I'm sorry, repeating myself, but that is just, I just wanted to put that out. I think needing also that local church, a lot of times people need a place to meet. And churches, we have unused facilities. I think also you don't necessarily need the gift of teaching up front, but we need teachers that would teach on some of these topics that will benefit our people. Look, they are going online anyway, listening to sermons and listening to other things. And I much rather have them, let's have some teachers that that are great at adding, creating some like sermon-like, and you can make a discussion. So Ricardo, since the pandemic, every Wednesday he could do Facebook Live. And he does beautiful teaching, but he does it almost, and actually people, they use it as a discovery. So he does a teaching, he does a reading, he adds some, and then he's like, okay, now talk, discuss that. And there's people all over Latin America. That is how they kind of get some extra. It's not replacing getting in the Word for themselves, but providing some of that extra, because they're going to do that anyway. The other thing is we need to raise up shepherds. Now, I know a lot of times pastor is really teacher, but we need pastors. We need people that have that gift of shepherding. Our folks get a lot of spiritual warfare. They get attacked, and especially once they start to take some responsibility and share that with others, man, their marriage get attacked. And they need people that come alongside and kind of like train and stand in the gap. People struggle in their marriages. We need to help them have better communication. We need to help them just shepherd them. So again, church, those are the fivefold ministry that is really needed. And a lot of times, if on some of these additional wraparound services, financial literacy, you have credit unions, you have other programs, they will come. In some cases, they would even give them seed funding. If they complete the class, they get $500 to start a savings account. But the thing is, you need to have a facility where you can gather and help them. Again, we don't have to do it all, but you need somebody like a catalytic leader that kind of sees the big picture and can kind of become good at collaborating and see where the opportunities, and then meet some of those needs. So I hope you find this helpful. I hope a lot of times we overlook opportunities that's in our backyard with traditional churches because we think they're not going to be interested. And I hope this maybe give you some insights in how we can really have a united effort. And I pray that God will give you favor. I pray that God will give you open doors. And what I've seen many times is maybe a pastor, and initially it was hard for him to understand it, but now that he's seen the fruit that is happening and how that is happening, he kind of like learns as he goes along, and now he's very supportive of DMM. We're not converting his church into become a DMM church, and now they're gonna, close. No, church still goes. It's almost planting a DMM style congregation or church within an existing church. Have we got it all figured out? No, but would love to journey along and also learn how what are some of the things you figured out. So God bless you. Thank you.